Okay, how's it going, guys? Just thought I'd make a video for you guys real quick, just to show you a little bit about what I was talking about. So, um, I've noticed I was trying to show a few individuals about the benefits that can come with Uber, but I'll kind of try to paint a picture by making another video. So, when it comes to Uber, one of the things that you have to realize is that Uber is a business model that has many different streams and different ways that you can earn money with Uber, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna dive into the computer and I'm gonna show you guys a little bit about what Uber has to offer and the reason why it's such a good opportunity. Um, Based on my own personal experience, I know that a lot of people don't understand the benefits of Uber because they haven't been given the proper training to understand it. That's why we're gonna dive into the computer and then I'll show you guys real quick how that works. Okay, so we're just over here at businessofapps.com and it's showing the statistics on what's going on with Uber, right? So when we look at the screen here, as you can see here, it's showing Uber's key statistics. So it's saying that Uber generated about $11.1 billion in revenue just in 2020. So we're reaching up to the end of 2021. So they're gonna be able to have an updated bit of stats on their newest frame of revenue. But that's just to show you that there's a huge piece of the pie, and at, for the most part, you're obviously not going to be able to make a couple $1 billion out of Uber if you're your average Joe. But wouldn't you like a piece of that pie? I mean, if you can make thousands of dollars out of it, why not, right? So it's just to show you a little bit of the opportunity there. Okay, so what it's saying is that Uber generated $11.1 billion in revenue in 2020, and that's a 21% decrease due to the coronavirus pandemic shutting down a lot of the ride-hailing service. Okay, however, and this is one of the things is I used to actually drive passengers around on Uber, but that was in the early stages. About a year later, probably a little bit less than a year later, I ended up going over to the side of Uber Eats, and since then I spent most of my time doing Uber Eats. Now I do Uber Eats full time, and the reason why is because it has a lot of different advantages that some people they're more accepting of. So let's say, for example, some people may not want to be driving people around in their car all the time. With Uber Eats, you don't have to drive people around in your own car. It's think of it this way: is you're kind of to a degree doing like takeout orders, but instead of delivering it to yourself, you're delivering it to other people. So that means you get to listen to your own music. You get to work when you want to work. You get to pick the time and the places where you want to work. Whereas some of the other different apps, they have a certain schedule for you. They have certain times and places that you have to be in. That's not the case here. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Another thing that's really great about this is there's plenty of people who don't have vehicles. So like if you deliver with Uber Eats, typically what you'd assume is that you need a vehicle to deliver food, but they actually have different methods of how it is you can deliver food. So that includes you can use a moped if you have one. You can use e-scooters. You can use bicycles, and you can even walk. Now there's different ways that you're gonna want to strategize so that you can make the most money by using these other options. But like I said, it's just to show you that these opportunities are there, and there's a reason for that, right? Okay, so there's a guy who actually did deliveries on bike, specifically bike, for 30 days, and he was able to amass over $8,000 just by delivering for 30 days on a bike. Now, am I saying that you're gonna want to deliver or work for 30 days in a row? Not necessarily, but it's just to show you what can be done. So for somebody who many people are used to making at the very most $2,000 to $3,000 at the very most. He made $8,000. 8,000 by driving on a bike. So basically, you got paid to essentially work out, to exercise, right? So that just shows you. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the contrast. So it's saying that while Uber's ride-hailing service contracted by contracted by 24%, Uber Eats increased revenues by over 200% in 2020. Part of the reason for that is because of the fact that many of the people who were forced into lockdown, they ended up having they ended up having to resort to options like getting food delivered to them. Another thing is a lot of people, they just didn't want to go outside because they weren't sure about what the what the virus had in store, and there's a few other different things, but for the most part it's just that most people were either staying in their house or they just couldn't be bothered. So a lot more people opted in for that. So that's showing you the increase of value that Uber Eats has, whereas Uber passengers taking an Uber rideshare, it decreased by a little bit, but there's still a huge market share, right? So that's just to show you. Okay, so look right here. And just to show you the annual revenue as to how it steadily increased. So the only thing that happened is from 2014 to 2019, it was a very big increase, very big increase. Last year, due to the fact that there was complications with lockdowns, there was a little bit of a decrease, but you can still see $11.1 billion was pulled in by Uber alone. Okay. If we're taking a look at U.S. and Canada, 2018 they brought in 6.4 billion, 2019 8.5 billion, and in 2020 is 6.8 billion. Okay, so overall, that's just to show you exactly what's available there. So what does that mean? What that means is that there are people who are in need for the services. So there's people always have to eat, right? So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, wherever you have a demand for something, where people need to eat, people need to get rides, things of that nature, you also need supply for that demand. So that means that there's gonna need to be rideshare drivers. There's gonna need to be delivery partners. If people don't meet those demands, then the value and the price of those services goes up. So that's to show you exactly why there's so much potential. Because if you go into a lot of the bigger cities, let's say for instance you have your New Yorks, your Miamis, your LAs, places like that, they're bigger cities, so there's way bigger demand. Go over to Canada, you have your Torontos, your Montreals, your Vancouvers. Places like this, they always have extremely huge demand, always. So for people who either live in those areas or for people who are willing to travel to those areas, there's quite a bit of change that you can make in those areas. So that's also to tell you. But what else is there? Just as much as there's a need for these services, there's also a need for vehicles. There's also a need for transportation to get around to these areas. Now, like I said, I focus more on the Uber Eats side of things, but there still is the need for cars for those who drive around passengers. But for those who deliver food, there's a need for the cars. There's need for bicycles. There's a need for even mopeds. There's different methods that people like to use, but there's a need for these type of things. So if we're gonna start on somewhat of the lower end, because not everybody can afford a car or is even willing to let somebody else use their vehicle. Many of these places need bikes. Not everybody can initially afford a bike, and not everybody necessarily wants to use their own bike. So I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you guys something real quick. It's going to show you exactly what it is you can do. Let's say, for example, you have your own job, and you can't really afford to necessarily either leave your job right now, or it's not something that you necessarily want to do, but you can do with a little bit extra money. So like, let's say for example, you go to work as regular, but you have a little bit of extra money that you can spend on an investment. Why not choose something like a bike? Bikes are inexpensive, and like I said, there's a high demand for them, so that other people can do things like deliveries. While they're using your bike for delivery, you're still able to bring in things like passive income for the bike. And if you have multiple bikes, then you have multiple streams of income. See how that works? So if you were making, let's say for example, you're making $50 per week renting out a specific bike, just the one bike. Well, if you have 5 bikes, then you're making $250 per week if you're in the market of a place that has the demand for that. So we're gonna go inside the computer and I'm gonna show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So right now is winter, so I guess it's one of those things where people will assume that for the most part nobody's bicycling around. I'm gonna show you guys just how different it is and how there's plenty of people that are biking around and people who would use bikes to deliver. So this right here is what they call a fat bike. The reason why they call it a fat bike is because the hub and the tires are much thicker, and the grip on it's also there's a lot bigger and more effective tread. So it allows people to do things like, say for instance, if you were somebody who takes your bike off road, then it's really good for getting through the things like going in areas where it's really muddy, or in this case, things like snow. So you have right there showing you. This is just one bike. There's many different bikes, but this is a site called Fat Llama. So Fat Llama allows you to rent different forms of equipment, different things out to people who need it, and then you can make yourself some passive income by doing that. So this bike right here is being rented out on the daily for $10 a day. For 7 days it's $7.14, and for 30 days it's $5.55 per day. So you can kind of do the math on that. If we were to multiply 555 times 30, you're making somewhere around $150 if somebody rents it out for the whole month. Now, you're obviously not going to have the expectation that people are going to rent it out for a whole month, but that's the reason why you want to have multiple bikes, so that there's multiple opportunities for people to rent a bike. If you're somebody who lives in one of these bigger cities, especially, and that's one of the ways that you're going to be able to make quite a bit of passive income, is by having opportunities like that. One of the reasons why there's such a huge demand for a lot of the deliverers in these areas is because people don't have the vehicle, or they don't have the equipment to go do the deliveries. But if they had the opportunity, then more people would. Okay, so that's just to show you just one option there. Okay, and for anybody who doesn't know exactly how I'll show you. Okay, so this is just an example of how a bike is able to go through areas where there's deeper snow, and as you can see, he's going at a decently fast pace, not slipping or anything like that. Able to do carving, able to do many different things, and that's just off of the fat bike. You can actually do the same thing, well, similar anyway, with a regular bike, but the deeper the snow or the more ice there is, the more difficult it becomes. That's why you want something like a fat bike. So, you being the smart investor that you are, some of you out there are extremely smart investors. You might be somebody who's like, okay, well, you know what? I have a little bit of extra change. Why don't I get myself a fat bike or two, or a couple bicycles, even for the warmer months, and then I can go rent these vehicles out, so that other people who are delivering in this high demand market can make money. You can make money. The economy ends up flourishing. Why not, right? There you have it. So that's really what I wanted to show you guys. Is there's many other different opportunities, but what I wanted to show you is that there are ways that you can flourish in any economy. You just have to be able to understand the value. So when you find out more about what's in demand, then you're able to understand more about where your money will lie. So like, we can take another example. You have things like Airbnb. Airbnb, why would Airbnb be a big thing? For anybody who's traveling to different areas tourism, people who need a place to stay short term, sometimes even long term. They use things like Airbnb, right? You find what people need, food, shelter, you name it, the list goes on and on. You're able to find ways that can accommodate people, but you have to understand where the demand is. So for all of you guys, you're in each of your cities is going to be a little bit different depending on what it is that your city has, but each city is going to have things like people needing shelter. It's going to have things like people needing food, people need transportation. There's a plethora of different ones, so hopefully this inspire you guys, and you know, I welcome any comments you have. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave it down in the comments, and I'll try to address them as good as I can. All right? Thanks, guys.